The Bosses of the Bronx, the endless drama of the Yankees under the House of Steinbrenner is the latest book by our longtime New York sports columnist, Mike Vaccaro. And Mike is on to take us through the rebirth and decades of drama and, of course, the championships of the Yankees franchise. The book's March 24th release is right around the corner. Mike's also going to talk about the Bombers, both past and present. Mike, you're a busy guy, man. Really busy guy. Love what you do for the viewers, our viewers and our fans here in New York City. You've been a long time sports columnist for the Post, as I said. So, what made you want to write the book, and what do you want the reader to kind of learn and take away about the history about the Yankees franchise?
You know what, Brandon? George Steinbrenner is such a huge part of the Yankee history, obviously, especially he's really the most significant part of Yankee history since 1973. And the fact is, he's been gone 16 years in July. And a lot of Yankees fans either weren't born when George was owned the team, certainly maybe not when he was in his prime. And I think it was important to just kind of tell his story completely. There were a lot of crazy moments when he was in his prime in the 70s and the 80s, and later on when he first returned in the 90s. And a lot of those stories are priceless. And it was fun to be able to chronicle them, go back and revisit them, and tell a fresh generation of Yankees fans what things used to be like. Because I think a lot of times now, George is a product of mythology. People don't necessarily remember firsthand who he was and what he was, all the good, all the bad. And I think that's what this book, its mission was, and I hope I accomplished it. I think, look, it was a fun one to write, so I certainly hope it's equally as fun for people to read it, because there should be some laughs in there and some things that'll make you want to shake your fists, and I think that's what a good book does.
I go back and forth with Yankee fans a lot about how they live in the past,
Mhm.
in the days of the captain Derek Jeter, and those are the yesteryears. But there's a new generation of Yankees fans out there, Mike, that I feel like are lost. I don't know, if you've seen it. Like, so do you feel like this is a must-read book for that younger generation of Yankees fans? Because they are what the Yankees fan that's what 22 to 27 years old today. They were 5 to 10 years old the last time the Yankees won a ring.
Right, and I think that's kind of I think what the best part about this book is. It kind of shows George, through his own kind of droughts. Obviously the Yankees didn't make the postseason from 1982 to 1995, and that was on his watch. And I think it's important to remember there's a lot of nostalgia that goes on now, Brandon, and you know this, about the George Steinbrenner myth. If only George was still alive. You hear that at least 15, 20 times a year. Yankees go on a losing streak and the manager hasn't been fired or the general manager hasn't been reassigned, and people just start yearning for George. And I think what this does is it kind of shows, yes, I mean, there was an impetuousness to George that was actually rewarded in certain times, making decisions, having urgency to win. And other times it didn't work out quite so well. And it's also, look, it's a different time for Hal Steinbrenner to run this team than it was for George. I mean, financially, it's a whole different, economic stratosphere. So I think these are all things we get into. And like I said, when the Yankees were good in the 70s and when they were born in the 90s, George had a lot to do with that. But when they were struggling, they had a lot to do with it also. So he wasn't perfect. I think a lot of younger Yankee fans are shocked when they find out that, the day that Steinbrenner was kicked out of baseball for the second time, Yankee Stadium gave the news a standing ovation and started chanting, "No more George, no more George." And you contrast that with the kindly avuncular figure that people were chanting, "Thank you, George," later on in his life. It was a very full life and a very interesting life, and certainly the portion with the Yankees, which is what this book focuses on. And I think that's what's going to be most enjoyable about reading it.
You kind of mentioned the landscape of modern day baseball being different for Hal than it was for George, but you also talk about like the man, the qualities of the boss, George Steinbrenner. Do you think that he could navigate this current landscape and win the franchise World Series 28?
Well, I think he figured it out, and frankly, in his own way, I think Hal has figured it out too, even though I know that's not a very popular opinion. Look, I mean, when George put together the 1977 Yankees, and they were the first team ever dubbed the best team money could buy. The entire payroll for that team was about 3 million bucks, right? So you translate that to $2,026, it's about $25 million, which is about what they're going to pay Aaron Judge, through July 31st. It's a whole different game. Ball players now are commanding $750 million, some of them, right? It's a different, when in back in the day, when George's partners would kind of complain that there wasn't a yearly dividend in their mailbox, he would joke and say, well, that's the cost of expensive season tickets. And everybody would get a laugh and they'd move on. It's a little less funny now when you're talking about billions of dollars. The economics are far different, even for the Yankees, who make more money than just about anybody. And I think that's something that, and look, I mean, I don't expect fans to put that in their list of things they ponder if they're going to complain about the way things are with the Yankees, if they're going through a losing streak, or like now, if they're going through a stretch where they haven't won a World Series since 2009. I get that. That's not important to the fans, nor should it be. But it is a reality of the times. And just pining for George, unless George would just show up with about 20 extra billion dollars in his bank account, it might not be much different than what it is now, just because of the realities of baseball's economic situation.
Spring training's kicked off. Opening day is feels like it's creeping up. We all know throughout the offseason the AL East got stronger, but the Yankees pretty much stayed the same. So do you think Hal Steinbrenner, Brian Cashman, and Aaron Boone did enough to make this team into contenders this year, Mike?
Well, honestly, Brandon, by July, I think they're going to have one of the best pitching staffs, if not the best pitching staffs in baseball. Certainly the rotation. I wrote a column a few weeks ago at the start of spring training comparing, this group of starters to some of the great rotations they've had in their history, as long and deep a history as any team in baseball, obviously. And look, I mean, a lot has to go right. Cole and Rodon have to be healthy, and Schlittler has to take another step, and Heel has to become has to kind of look more like he did as a rookie and less like he did last year. And Max Fried obviously has to have a repeat of last year. So there's a lot of ifs there, and a lot has to go right. But if those things do go right, they're going to have a terrific pitcher on the mound every day from about July 1st on, and that's a huge advantage. Obviously, you're right. The other teams in the division got better. It's going to be a stronger division. Until proven otherwise, the Blue Jays are the team to beat. Of course, running it back isn't such a terrible thing when you think about the fact that the Yankees won just as many games as the Blue Jays did last year. They just lost the tiebreaker. So, and yes, they lost to the Blue Jays head to head. That happens in a short series. And, so we can talk all we want about the crapshoot nature of the playoffs. Yankee fans are tired of hearing that stuff too. I get it. But I do think they're going to be in there. Look, I mean, what you're running back is a team that won 94 games. I think they're a little better because of the pitching. And I think, once you're into October, then you take your swings. And when you have that pitching staff in a short series, I think you're going to like your chances about maybe being able to do some damage.
Tuesday, March 24th is your book release event. Kind of talk to us about the event and what are you looking forward to most with this release?
Just talking about those days, Brandon. I mean, George Steinbrenner was just a figure that just comes along, maybe once in a lifetime. And he wasn't always a joy to cover. I mean, the beat writers who covered him in the day will tell you he was sometimes kind of a nightmare. I had a good relationship with him. He and I talked frequently after I got the job at the Post in 2002. And look, I mean, that time and place in Yankee history, really in baseball history, and honestly in American history, it's worth remembering and it's worth reading about. Um, I'm looking forward to the event on 24th. We're having the Rutherford across the street from Madison Square Garden. Anybody who wants to come is more than welcome. It's going to be available. Bookstores everywhere starting March 24th. It's available for pre-sale right now. If you want to go to Amazon, you want to go to HarperCollins.com. Don't feel like you have to wait till March 24th. It's especially now as we're getting ready for baseball. I think people are hungry for baseball, and hopefully this book can help satisfy that hunger.
All right, Mike. Well, thank you for hopping on with us, and I can't wait for the event. Congratulations on coming out with another book, man.
Thanks, Brandon. Great talking to you about it.